All right, let's jump right into this. Welcome to a very unique explainer today, because what we're doing is essentially a director's pitch. Imagine we're sitting in a studio, and we are going to deconstruct the world's longest epic, the ancient Indian Mahabharata, into a high-octane, 3-minute AI cinematic trailer blueprint. We're literally taking thousands of years of philosophical, political, and spiritual history and looking at it purely through the lens of modern visual storytelling. It's going to be a wild ride.
So here's the million-dollar question. How on earth do you compress an epic that is literally 8 times longer than the Iliad and the Odyssey combines into just 3 minutes? Well, to pull this off, we have to map this ancient text directly onto a modern 3-act theatrical structure. We obviously can't cover every single subplot, so we are focusing purely on emotional intensity and massive visual spectacle. We have to distill the absolute essence of the story, so that even someone who has never even heard of the Pandavas or the Kauravas instantly feels the massive gravity of their world.
Look, before we even think about rendering a single sword or a chariot, we have to establish the core theme: dharma versus adharma. That's righteousness and cosmic justice going head-to-head with injustice and chaotic ambition. Our trailer's overarching thematic conflict rests entirely on this eternal struggle. By anchoring it in these concepts, we establish these majestic philosophical stakes right from the very opening frames. This isn't just some historical family feud, It's a battle for the moral fabric of the universe itself.
Okay, moving right into Act 1, World and Betrayal. Any truly great cinematic teaser needs to show you exactly what is at risk of being lost. So picture this. Visualize sweeping, cinematic wide shots of absolute architectural marvels. The sources describe Indraprastha as a magnificent city designed by Vishwakarma himself, the divine god of architecture. We want our AI-generated trailer to show these precise grid layouts, sprawling green spaces, and specifically the jaw-dropping Palace of Illusions. Imagine generating these high-fidelity shots of mirages, like reflective crystal floors that literally look exactly like pools of water. We're establishing this majestic baseline of prosperity and wonder, which, of course, makes the impending tragedy hit that much harder. But then, bam, the visual grandeur shatters. The music just drops to a low, ominous hum. We hit our inciting incident, the rigged dice game where the Pandavas lose absolutely everything. Here Draupadi's fierce interrogation echo through the hall. If you were lost before playing me, I was no longer yours. Can one belong to someone who has lost himself? Who can answer me? Bhishma, answer me. In our trailer, the visual of a crowded, dead-silent court is violently pierced by this defiant, agency-driven interrogation. As our sources really emphasize, she is not a passive victim here. Her questioning of the elders on the legality of the game is a radical act of defiance. This is our trailer's massive emotional catalyst, shifting the epic from passive fate to active, righteous dissent.
Which brings us to Act 2, Titans and Dilemmas.
Now, to really understand the accelerating pacing and the fierce psychological warfare of this second act, we gotta grasp the concept of dharmic leadership. This isn't your conventional brute force kind of power. It's the ethical authority to take decisive and, honestly, often highly unconventional action for the greater good. In our trailer, we introduce Lord Krishna not just as a divine figure, but as the master strategist orchestrating the entire board. He uses this exact concept of dharmic leadership to drive the incredibly complex political machinery of the war, making these agonizingly difficult choices that balance individual morality with the ultimate survival of cosmic justice. Think of this next part like a rapid-fire montage of absolute tactical genius that really dictates how Krishna's mind works. Imagine quick, rhythmic cuts matching these specific tactics. First step, psychological vulnerability. Krishna utilizing Shakandi as a literal shield to completely neutralize the invincible Bhishma. Then, smash cut to emotional deception, exploiting the unbeatable military strategist Drona's deep attachment to his son. Cut again to exploiting virtue, brilliantly orchestrating Karna's own sacred vow of charity just to strip away his divine armor. These visuals powerfully demonstrate that this is a war won through supreme intelligence and psychological maneuvering, definitely not just brute strength. But hey, it can't all just be cold strategy, right? The trailer also needs deep, gut-wrenching human tragedy. I mean, think about it. How do you choose between the mother who abandoned you and the friend who crowned you? The emotional core of this entire act rests squarely on Karna's agonizing ethical dilemma. He is caught in this utterly tragic conflict between discovering his secret bloodline, which, crazy enough, makes him a literal brother to his sworn enemies, and his unwavering loyalty to Duryodhana, the only guy who gave him his dignity. This right here is the ultimate tragic close-up in our cinematic preview.
And that tension pushes us right over the edge into Act 3, the epic war.
This is where the tension reaches an absolute boiling point, and our edit mimics a frantic, total sensory overload montage of the devastating 18-day battle at Kurukshetra. The trailer is reaching a massive crescendo here. We start with day 1, Arjuna's initial, paralyzing hesitation cured by Krishna's divine wisdom. It's like this brief moment of quiet before the absolute storm hits. Then, smash cut to day 3, the dynamic, earth-shattering Garuda Vyuha. Imagine an enormous, perfectly coordinated army literally moving in the shape of a massive divine eagle, clashing violently with the Pandavas' crescent array. Then, day 4, visceral, grounded, gritty action shots of Bhima on a ferocious, completely unstoppable rampage with his mace single-handedly forcing a massive core of a retreat.
And just when you think the montage can't get any bigger, the visual stakes hit absolute maximum with the threat of the Brahmastra. This is a celestial weapon capable of rendering the entire Earth barren, literally the ancient equivalent of a nuclear bomb. The music swells to a deafening, apocalyptic roar as the sky in our trailer burns blindingly bright, bringing absolute, catastrophic devastation to the battlefield. The audience should feel the literal end of the world looming over them.
Finally, we reach the final fade to black. After all that overwhelming sensory overload of the war, the trailer's sound design just drops out completely. We are left with nothing but a haunting, isolated whisper, followed by this incredibly solemn sequence. Yudhishthira finally claims the throne, but he's overseeing a completely decimated Hastinapur. After a long 36-year reign, the crown passes to King Parikshit. Then we see these sweeping, freezing, isolated shots of the Pandavas and Draupadi, beginning a very lonely, fatal spiritual ascent into the harsh Himalayas. Ultimately, Yudhishthira remains as the sole survivor. You see, our cinematic trailer ends not with some triumphant, cheering victory march, but with a profoundly tragic and haunting image of a lonely king surrounded by the ghosts of his fallen family. So, I'm going to leave you with this final, provocative thought. The Mahabharata isn't just some dusty story from the past. It is an absolute masterclass in human psychology, ethics, and grand-scale storytelling. What cinematic tools will you use to bring this timeless narrative to life? How will you harness modern AI filmmaking to translate the ultimate human epic for a completely new generation? Thanks so much for exploring this amazing source material with me today. See you next time.